Off the top of your head, right now, how many pieces of hardware is PlayStation releasing in just this year? 3? 4? Try 7. 8 even, depending on how you want to count some of this out. This has been a huge year for PlayStation hardware, releasing all kinds of different stuff into the PlayStation ecosystem, and it feels like a very heavy push in a direction Sony wants to take the brand moving forward. A direction that in a lot of ways reminds me of Apple, not necessarily in terms of what their products are trying to do, but the concept of an ecosystem. Multiple devices, all first party, all built around encouraging an ecosystem that focuses on the main product they're using. Now in Apple's case, there's actually a variety of things that could be there, your phone, laptop, whatever, but in PlayStation's case, everything is centered around the PS5. Real quick, by the way, with how much hardware is coming out this year, obviously I'm planning on covering a lot of it. I've already done some videos on the DualSense Edge. I should probably do at least another video talking about the PSVR 2, but definitely planning on covering the revised PS5 along with the PlayStation Portal and some other stuff. So if you want to make sure you see those videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. So what are all these pieces of hardware PlayStation is releasing this year? Now, obviously, part of this that's being counted is that we are getting refreshed models of the PS5 later this year. I'm counting that on its own as just a singular item, although one way you could add a bonus item to this list is counting the Blu-ray drive as a separate item, since that's something that's coming bundled with the physical edition of the system and is something that can be sold and purchased separately. Previously, looking at the start of this year, we got 2 pieces of hardware that were already released with the DualSense Edge controller, which is basically the very first official first-party Pro controller that PlayStation has done in the past. And then later on, we got the release of the PSVR 2. One of the slightly more mixed releases, I would say, out of the full list on here. The high asking price point of something that is more expensive than the system it attaches to at $550, with a library that, while it has had some more additions, does feel like it's very slow going, especially considering that the library basically had to have a soft reset anyways from the PSVR. And then aside from the revised PlayStation 5 coming out next month, we also have 4 other pieces of hardware all releasing before 2023 ends. We have a pair of headsets with the new updated PlayStation Pulse Elite, the brand new in-ear phone option with the PlayStation Pulse Explore. PlayStation Portal is also, of course, on its way this year, which is Sony's new direction for a handheld system that, instead of being its own native play-focused device, is a remote play device that supports the PS5, giving the ability to play your PlayStation 5 either over the same local Wi-Fi or going to another location as long as you have Wi-Fi access to play those games in a little handheld form. And while targeted at a more specific market, one of the most important pieces of hardware they're also releasing this year is, of course, their new Access controller, offering better accessibility options for those with disabilities to be able to more comfortably play games. I think another interesting way of looking at this too is what the total price of all this stuff is. I mean, if you were someone who was interested in keeping up with every bit of major first-party release stuff, you want to have the latest system, you want to have access to first-party headsets, you're going to make use of the Portal, you want to try out the PSVR 2. Assuming, let's say, we'll put aside the Access controller because that is a more specific market, everything else together totals up to over $2,000 worth of product this year, given half of that is the PSVR 2 and the PlayStation 5 on their own, but that's still a lot of product in total. And that's not even including all these sort of auxiliary secondary accessories that aren't necessarily hardware, but are a part of giving people more options of what to do with their PlayStation systems. We've seen a heavier push in the direction of them releasing more color options for the DualSense controller, different color cover options that you can apply to the PlayStation, which they've already confirmed they're going to be doing new versions of those for the revised PS5, since it does have that different kind of 4-section approach to their covers. And quite possibly one of the most perplexing and frustrating, the fact that if you want to use the new PS5 in vertical mode, you have to buy a separate $30 stand to support that. Though I am very curious to see how well the system is going to stand up on its own without it, just considering the way it's shaped. I feel like a lot of people are just going to go ahead and stand it up that way as long as it's not eternally wobbling, unless of course maybe you have a pet or a kid or something where maybe you don't want to take that chance quite as much in case it might get nudged. Obviously, hardware and support accessories have always played a large role in the past for PlayStation consoles, but this really feels like a concerted effort towards pushing in a direction where there is a lot more out there that is not only first-party branded, but also offers a lot of unique benefits that aren't available going through officially licensed options. The DualSense Edge is a great example of this, because it's something that's already out that we can look at, right? I did a whole video comparing it against all the other Pro controller options for the PlayStation 5, and the biggest absolute strength that it offered over all the other ones was compatibility. There was stuff in terms of the actual physical controller design that I honestly think the other options handled better, especially when it comes to things like battery life, but the DualSense Edge has a degree of connectivity with the PS5 that is not offered on any underestimate the others. The kind of native support, the ability to swap apps, the level of UI integration where you can just dive in and see the settings and just go straight into customization out of a game by hitting a hotkey button. There's just a lot of baked-in benefits that come from it being a first-party option that is straight up just not an option for third-party makers to make. And this is also something that's happening with their upcoming headsets. You look at the PlayStation Pulse Elite and Pulse Explorer. Part of the selling point of these headsets, particularly the Pulse Elite since it is replacing the previously existing Pulse, is the inclusion of a new proprietary connection type to PlayStation called PlayStation Link. Previous PlayStation headsets have relied on a 2.4 GHz dongle in order to support wireless connectivity. Whereas with this PlayStation Link technology, if you're using a piece of PlayStation hardware that supports it along with one of these headsets, you're able to connect directly to the system, no dongle required, and take advantage of a connection type that is not only low latency, but lossless as well. Now, currently, the only actual confirmed piece of hardware offering this support is the PlayStation Portal, but I would not be surprised if the revised PS5 model down the line ended up confirming before launch that PlayStation Link is a part of this as well. It's actually really interesting when you look at the blog post they made for the revised PS5. Wireless connectivity like that is a spec that is just completely not listed. It talks about Wi-Fi, but it doesn't actually talk about Bluetooth connectivity or, by possible extension, this new PlayStation Link option, which would make a lot of sense for it to include if the PlayStation Portal, releasing around the same time, is offering that tech built in and gives you a potential reason for wanting to have one of these newer models of systems if you still have the current launch model and take advantage of the tech to use with their new line headsets. Which also, just to throw out there, they've already clarified that the new headsets do also include dongle options, so if you do have an older PS5, you can use them that way. But I think there is absolutely something to be said for that appeal of offering a no dongle solution with this new proprietary connection. And I'm willing to bet that moving forward, as we see more third-party licensed headsets come out, because they're not going to entirely cut off anyone else from making headsets for PlayStation, but I'm willing to bet that those third-party options are still going to need to rely on a direct connection or making use of a dongle and will not be taking advantage of their own PlayStation Link technology. Similar again to those kind of additional options the DualSense Edge has over other third-party Pro controllers that they just simply can't have. PlayStation Portal is also a very interesting part of this equation because instead of being a companion piece of hardware that is its own fully featured system, similar to what they did in the past with the PSP and PS Vita, it is a pure support device focused on people who already have access to a PlayStation 5 and gives them the ability to play those games remotely on the system. Now, the sales pitch for this has been a little weird for a lot of people, primarily because this is a functionality that is, for many people, just available on their phone directly, but there is that hanging question of how much better is the experience through this device with its built-in controls while supporting DualSense features like adaptive triggers and the better haptics, and whether or not it does offer a better optimized remote play experience where you're really having the least amount of lag possible while maintaining a great looking image. This, the headsets, PSVR 2 opening up its own library of games, all of these are focused on expanding the kind of things that the PlayStation 5 is able to offer. And considering how much of it is all coming out in this year alone, I'm curious how much PlayStation is going to keep pushing in this direction. I don't think we're necessarily going to have, 7 pieces of hardware every single year, but are we going to be seeing a heavier push in first-party support for all kinds of accessories out there? If we're going to have a first-party Pro controller option like the DualSense, how long before PlayStation releases their own first-party fight stick option or box controller, or even a racing wheel that ties into the next Gran Turismo launch and has additional compatibility and functions with the PSVR 2? And to be honest, I'm actually a little surprised they have not already begun to lean harder into TV compatibility. Obviously, they do this to an extent. If you go to Sony's own website for TVs and go to their gaming section, you'll see how they'll talk about how their gaming TVs are, perfect for PlayStation and offer all the main support features they need to. I think one of my favorite funny splash pages I never noticed before until researching this video is a straight up page that says it is the official TV of FF16. That is not a thing I saw anywhere until looking at these TV listings. But it doesn't quite hit the same level that we were seeing them push in the past, like during the PS3 when there was an actual official PlayStation TV, not the little one that was a Vita without a screen. I'm talking about the 3D TV that offered 3D functionalities when PlayStation was trying to make that a thing on PS3 games. And even PlayStation 4 in the early years, there was a move to try and do things like having incorporated cloud gaming in Sony TVs, which they backed off from slowly over time, and maybe even could be reintroduced sometime in the future now that cloud gaming is coming to the PS5 library, and Sony seems to be more interested in that kind of cloud and remote play direction becoming a part of the experience. It just seems to me that PlayStation has hit this moment now where software is still going to do what's going to do, and we have more games coming out, and there's stuff to be excited for, but hardware is playing a larger and larger role in terms of their first-party offerings of ways to make additional profit, and with how much is releasing this year, I just have this sneaking suspicion that this year alone is not the end of it. I don't think we're going to have this super heavy push of all this new hardware in 23, and then we get nothing until 25, 26. I think this is an initial heavy push that is setting the tone for more stuff coming up in the future. The thesis of this video isn't really meant to be a praise or condemnation of this route either way. It's more of an observation of where I think PlayStation is now headed forward, and the future is one that is filled not only with the kind of traditional focus on a first-party device that is the focused main place of playing their games and having a strong first-party library supported, but to now have a fully realized ecosystem of additional support accessories and items that expand the experiences available to players, whether that's with things like remote play devices or the PSVR 2, or offer an officially recognized best proper way of having support accessories like headphones, in-ear buds, Pro Controller, so on and so forth. And by the end of the PS5's life cycle, as we get ready for PlayStation 6 or whatever's next, I think we're going to see a much larger list of stuff by the end. So that's just some thoughts I've been having lately about the just blitz of PlayStation hardware that's been coming out this year, and how it very much just reminds me of Apple in a lot of different ways. Again, I am planning on covering a lot of this stuff as it releases, the revised PlayStation model, the PlayStation Portal. I might even take a look at the headsets. I don't focus on audio quite as much, but if there's a lot of interesting first-party stuff to that, I want to see how it stands up to some of the competition out there. So if you want to see those videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know, and I will see you guys later.